Hello there, my name is Akshay and welcome back to Geeks for Geeks. And in the previous video, I've told you about various SQL commands, and in this video, we are going to do the SQL constraints and different keys as well as the insert command. So let us begin by opening SQL. So for opening SQL, I'm going to open my SQL command line prompt. Okay, so this was my command line prompt. Let me increase the font size and input the password as root, as I've stated in the previous video. Okay, so as soon as I type root, it gets opened over here, and I've already explained you how to show all the databases. So I'm going to use show databases. Okay, so these are all the databases, and I've created the database named as GFG. So I'm going to use GFG, and I've changed the databases. Now let me show you how to show all the tables. Okay, for that we use the show tables command, right? So I'm going to use show tables, and these are all the tables that we previously created, and that's how we open all the tables. Okay, so these were all the tables that we created in the previous video, and I might have shown you how to create a table. Now as we have created these many tables, I've already explained you how to create these tables, right? So let me first use one table. Let me create another table, and I'm going to use constraints over there. Constraints are, what are these constraints? So constraints are basically rules which we have to follow while creating a table or while inserting the data inside that particular table. Okay. So constraints can be specified when the table is created with create table statement. So let me write down create table student, not exactly student. Let's say the table name is EMP. Okay. I've created a table EMP, and I'm gonna give the column names. So we have to give it into brackets, right? So I'm going to open the bracket and I'm going to write the table's first column name, that is, let's say ENO. Okay. And the data type will be integer. Let us try to name it as integer. Okay. Then after that, we will set the constraint over here. So what will be the constraints inside this int? So first, let me give a value like I'm gonna use 20 integers over here. Okay. Then this E number, that is the employee number, should be unique throughout the whole table. So I'm gonna write unique over here. Okay. I'm gonna tell you about all of these constraints in a few minutes. I'm just giving you a quick overview how you write constraints over here. Okay. So this is how you provide the constraints, and I'm gonna write name. Then the data type will be character and the length will be 30, and it should not be null. After providing not null, I'm going to close this table. Okay. And put a semicolon so that this table will be created. And as you can see, this table is now created. Now let me show you the description of this table by using the desc command. So I'll write desc emp and I'll press enter. So this is the table that we just created, and as you can see, it has given UNI in the key over here, and the null is no over here. So what are these things? These are the rules which we use to insert inside this table. So like if I try to insert data inside this table, I'll have to give the unique E numbers as well as not null name. That is, you cannot provide null values inside the name column. Like I'm trying to insert multiple rows and I'm not giving any name over there inside each and every row. So those rows will not be inserted because we have given it a constraint of not null. Okay. So this was the basic syntax. So let me write down the syntax so that you may remember it. The syntax is create table, table name. Then after that, what do you have to give? The column 1, columns data type, and after that you have to give constraints. Okay. Then you have to give comma, and you can write multiple columns over here like column 2 data type, and after that you have to give constraint. Okay. Then similar manner, you can insert multiple columns as much as you want. And after that, you have to close the brackets and put a semicolon over there. Now this is going to show an error because we are not creating any table, like create table name, and there is no data type whose name is data type, and there are no constraints whose name are constraints. Okay. So yeah, this shows an error because this is not the right syntax of creating a table. Basically, it is just a syntax. It is just a structure in which you can insert data according to your will, and you can insert constraints inside a particular table that you want. Okay. So what are the SQL constraints? I'm gonna write it down again. So SQL constraints are used to specify rules for data in a table. Okay. And constraints are used to limit the type of data that can go into a table that ensures the accuracy and reliability of the data inside a table. Like when we are inserting unique numbers over here, then it will be easier for us to find out individual record when we are searching inside this particular table, right? So that kind of thing can be done using these constraints. And if there is any violation between the constraints and the data action, the action is aborted. Like we try to insert the data inside this table and we try to repeat the values of e number, that data will not be inserted. Or we try to insert the null values inside the name, that data will not be inserted because we are breaking the constraints, right? Yeah. So constraints can be a column level or a table. Like you can give constraints throughout a particular column, like we have given it over here, like we have not given not null in the particular column name. And we can also give it in a particular table that we are going to learn about in further videos. Okay. So table level constraints apply over a whole table and the column level constraints apply over a particular column. Okay. So the next thing is I'm going to write down what are these different constraints that we will use in SQL. Okay. So just a minute. Yeah. So what are the different, just a minute. Caps lock is on. Different constraints in SQL. Okay. So what are these different constraints? So the first one is not null. So what is this not null used for? It ensures that a column can't have a null value. Okay. The next one is unique constraint. Okay. So what is this unique used for? It ensures that all the values in a column are different. Okay. Then there is primary key over here. So these are the keys which I was talking about initially in this video, and these are also constraints which we use to provide the specialty, like special constraints inside a table. Like the primary key is a combination of not null and unique. You gotta remember this statement very clearly, and we are gonna use it again and again throughout this course. The primary key is very important topic, and I'm gonna explore it in just a minute. First, let me write down all the constraints that we are going to use in SQL. Then there is this foreign key. So foreign key constraint is used to prevent actions that would destroy links between tables. I'm going to show you the use of this foreign key in further videos. Now you just have to remember the name of this particular key, like foreign key. And then there is this check constraint. So check constraints is used to ensure that the values in a column satisfies a specific column. Okay, the check key is used to ensure that the values in a column satisfies a specific column, and we are going to use it in further videos. Then there is this default constraint, and in the default constraints we can set a default value. Okay, then there is create index. So create index is used to create and retrieve data from the database very quickly. So I'm gonna write down retrieve data very quickly. Okay, so these are all the constraints that we are gonna learn about in SQL. Now let us go through each one of these in detail. Okay, so the first one is not null. So for that, I'll just end this. Just a minute. It's not ending. I'm gonna write it down over here. Okay, after 2 or 3 lines. So SQL not null constraint. So SQL not null constraint, by default a column can only hold null values. Like we have not given not null in this table over here in the first statement, right? We have given the unique constraint over here. So what this will do, by default any column can be null, of type null, that it can accept null values, like the value which does not mean anything inside that particular column. Like there's a student database over there and some particular student does not have a Aadhaar card. So by default this column will accept the null values, that is uh, there will be Aadhaar cards of every student available inside that table, and for a particular student who does not have Aadhaar card in his particular row, that will be given over there, that this value is null. And null is basically that it is nothing, like it's zero. Okay, so the not null constraints enforces a column to not accept the null values. This enforces a field to always contain a value, which means that you cannot insert a new record or update a record without adding a value to this field. So like we have just used in this particular table, this was the syntax of not null, which we use inside this table. Okay, so for that we use like the column name, the data type, its size, and we have also given the constraint that is not null. And what does this do? That we cannot insert values, null values inside this particular column, that is name. Okay, this name column, we cannot insert null values inside this column. So yeah, that was it for the not null value. Okay, so I'm going to show it to you by using an example. So I'm going to create table. So just a minute, let me try to end this. It's not ending, so I'm going to restart SQL. Okay, so my SQL command line I've just opened and I have to input the password as we have done before. So I'm going to write root. Okay, so you might have not noted all these topics, so you can reverse this video or you can follow the timestamps and you can note the data that I have explained you just now throughout this video. Okay, so I'm going to use the not null constraints. I was going to show you the use of not null. So let me first use the database, that is GFG, and in this database I will create a table that whose name is table whose name was persons. Okay, and in this table there will be columns like ID, whose data type will be integer and it cannot be null. Okay, then there will be last name and data type will be varchar and the length will be 200 and the data type will be not, the constraint will be not null. Okay, and then there will be first name whose data type will be varchar and the length will be 200 as usual and the constraint will be not null. And I'm gonna write down another column over here, that is age, whose data type will be int and the length will be 3 characters. Okay, so no person is above 100. Okay, that's why I'm giving 3 over here and I'm creating this column. So yeah, this table is now created and let me show you the description of this table by using the dist command. So persons. Okay, so this is the table that we just created and I've not given not null inside this last column over here. So this column can accept null values and all the other columns have given not null over there. So that's why they can accept the null values. Okay, so that was not null constraints. And if I try to insert data inside this particular table and I try to insert null values inside these three columns, it will not accept those values and the data will not be inserted. Okay, so the next thing is the unique constraint. So unique constraint ensures that all the values inside the column are different. Okay, both the unique constraints and primary key constraints provide a guarantee for the uniqueness of a column or a set of columns. Like we use primary key over here inside this ID, and we use last name as unique. Okay, so what will happen when we try to insert data inside this table? Both of these will function in a similar manner, but the unique one can accept the null values, but the primary key cannot accept the null values. Because primary key, I've written previously that primary key is a combination of unique and not null constraints, right? So that is the basic difference between unique and not null. Okay, so let me try to show you by creating another table, the unique constraint. Okay, so create table person 2, and for the columns I'll write ID again. The data type will be integer, and I'm gonna give two constraints over here, like not null as well as unique. Okay, and I'm gonna create another column over here, that is name, and its data type will be character, and the length will be 40, and I'm gonna give primary key over here, and I'm gonna create this column. Okay, so this table is now created, and I'm gonna show you the description of this table by using the desk command. So desk person, now this shows me just a minute, I've created persons too, right? So this shows me the description of this particular table. So as you can see, it is given over here that it cannot accept the null values, as well as it is also unique. And in the next row, that is, we created the primary key of name, right? So name cannot accept null values, but we have not given not null over here, as you can see here. Okay, so what will happen when we try to insert inside this particular table? uh, the name column will not accept the null values as well as the same values. Like if we try to insert two persons of same name, this table cannot accept those values because we created primary key over here, and primary key is a combination of two tables, as I've explained you previously, right? So that's how we use the unique constraint, and primary key is basically the combination of unique and not null. Now the next key that I've just shown you is the primary key. Okay, so primary key, let me write down. Primary key is basically not null plus unique. Okay, it's nothing. This is the basic thing that you must remember while using primary key, that primary key is basically a combination of not null as well as unique. So when we try to create a table, and we want that you cannot insert null values inside this table, and you want that that particular column will have unique values. So for that we use the primary key. So I'll show it to you by creating another table, person 3, and in this table the column name will be ID int 40, and the basic thing that we will use is primary key. Okay, then I'll create another column whose whose name will be name, and the data type will be character. The length will be 50. Okay, then the constraint that we're going to use over here, that is not null. Okay, then after that I'm going to insert another column over here that will be age, and the data type will be of type integer, and the size will be let's say 4. Okay, then after that I'll also close this column, and I'm not going to provide any constraints over here. Okay, so this table is now created, and I'll show you the description of this table by using the desk command. So I'm going to write down desk persons, let's say, and I'll press enter. Okay, so this is the description of, wait a minute, the table name was persons3, right? So I'll write persons3 and I'll press enter. Okay, it's person3 over here, and I'm gonna write person3 over here, right? So yeah, I'll write desk person3. S is not there. Okay, so this is the description of this table, and as you can see, it is given over here that the ID is not null. Okay, we have given the primary key over here, so by default it is not null, and it will also not accept the null values. Okay, so and it will not accept the duplicate values or the same values at the same time. Okay, and we have given the not null inside the name column over there, so that's why it is not null over there. And we have not given any key, so it can accept the duplicate values, but it cannot accept the null values. Okay, and inside the age we have not given any of these constraints, so by default it is null, that if we don't insert value inside this table, that it will be take the null value. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is the use of insert command. Okay, so insert into command is used to insert the values inside the table. Okay, then this command is having particular two types of commands. Okay, so we use mainly two types of commands to insert the value inside the particular table. So the first one is the insert into, and we are going to use the column. We were going to provide the column names over here. So for that, the first one I'm going to write down is we have to give the column names over here. Okay, so I'm going to write down with columns. Okay, then after that, in this with column, the basic syntax to create insert the data with columns is insert into table name, and I'll provide the column names over here inside the bracket, and the column names will be like column 1, column 2, and dot dot dot. Like you can provide any number of columns over here that are present inside the particular table that we have created, and after that you have to give the value. So for the values, you have to give the values, however number of values you have given the columns, like there are 6 columns, so you have to insert these 6 values. Okay, then after that, after using this command, you can insert the values inside a particular table using the column name. Okay, and then after that, you have to provide a semicolon over there and you can press enter. So this command will insert the values inside a particular table. And the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to insert values without using the column name. So for that, I'll write down without columns. Okay, and I'll write down the basic syntax, that is insert into table name. So basically what does this statement means, we are not going to provide any column names over here, like column we have not provided any columns, right? So we'll write down the values. The values will be value 1, value 2, and whichever however number of columns are there inside this particular table, we are going to insert that many values. Okay, so like for example, there are 3 columns inside this particular table that we just previously created, so we will have to provide 3 values inside these brackets. Okay, so this is how you insert. These are the 2 ways in which you can insert the values inside the table using the insert into command. So insert into command is very basic, and we are going to use it throughout this course to insert the values inside any table. Okay, now let me try to insert values inside this table person3. So for the table name, I'm going to use person3. Okay, then after that, I'm going to provide the column names over here. So what were the column names? That are the ID, name, and age. So I'll write ID over here, and for the column 2, I'll write name over here. Okay, and for the column 3, I'll remove these 3 dots and I'll write age over here. And after that, I'll give the values like we have done it. I've shown you in the syntax, right? So there are 3 columns over here, right? So for the ID, I'll give, let's say 1, and as you can see, I've given the primary key constraints over here, so I'm going to write down the value as 1, so that we'll be able to find this record when we are going to need it. Okay, and for the name, I'll give 1, and after that, I'll give the age, that is 20, let's say. and I'm inserting this row inside this table, that is person 3. Okay, now I'll show you another way to insert the data inside this particular table. That is, now in this way we'll not provide the column name. So I'm going to erase this and press enter. So after that, you can insert the values just like we have done in the previous command. Okay, so I'll write the name as B, and the ID I'll change it to 2, and for the age I'll change it to let's say 30. Okay, then I'll press enter to insert this row. Okay, so we have not provided any columns over here. Okay, so this will also insert the data inside this particular table, that is person 3. Now after that, I'll show you the content of this table by using the select command. We are going to learn about select command in brief in the further videos. Okay, so for the select command, we use select asterisk from table name, and the table name is person 3 over here. And as you can see, there are 2 values inserted inside this table. That is, we have just inserted the values using the column name and without a column. Okay, and as you can see, there were 2 constraints over here, like the not null and the primary key. So primary key cannot accept the null values. Now let us try to insert the null values inside this table. So for that, I'll use the insert without columns command, and I'm gonna write down, let's say I'm not providing any ID over here. So as you can see, it shows an error because this column cannot accept the null value, as you can see. Okay, and you can also provide empty braces over here and see if these column will be inserted or not. Now let us check the unique constraint. So for that, I'll try to insert this row after duplicate row. Okay, so this row is already present inside this table, right? Like we just inserted. So I'm gonna try to insert this row again. Just a minute. Okay, so if I try to insert duplicate values inside this table, and I'll press enter. So as you can see, it shows duplicate entry 2 for the key primary. So we have declared that ID should be unique, right? By using the primary key. So primary key will not accept the duplicate values. Okay. So this was the thing that I was explaining you previously. Like we cannot accept duplicate values inside the primary key. That primary key is a combination of not null as well as unique. Okay. So let's say I want to insert the data inside this table, and I'm not going to provide any input in the age. Like age can be null by default, right? So for that, I'll use insert into, and I'm going to insert the data inside the specific column, that is ID and name. So the basic syntax will be like this, like insert into table name, and I'll give the column names over here like ID and name, and the values I'll give like 3, and I'll give C. Okay, then I'll press a semicolon and I'll press enter. So this row is now inserted. I'm going to show you the record of this table by using the select command. So after using this, as you can see, it is null over here, that age is given as null. So while creating this table, we have declared that age can accept the null values, right? So by default, age can accept the null values, and hence we have given null over here. Okay, so that's how you insert null values inside this table. Okay, and we have not given age, so that's why it is given null over here. Now, even if we have named the column inside the insert command, and we have given empty braces over here, like empty quotes over there, so it will also be counted as the null value, so that you can remember this command. Okay, so that was it for this video, guys. And in this video, I've explained you the different commands. I've explained you about the different constraints that we used in this particular video, and I've also give you a brief introduction to all of these constraints one by one. Like there were multiple constraints like unique and not null, and I've also explained you about the primary key. Primary key is basically a combination of unique and not null, right? And I've told you about the foreign key that we are going to use in further videos. Foreign key is basically used to link 2 tables, and it is like one table there is a primary key, and in the other table, we are going to use the references key to link these two tables and link the data inside those particular two columns, right? So let me show you another thing. So these were all the things that we covered in this video, and I also explained you the insert command, right? So if you want more about this particular course, or you want to know more about SQL, you can also go to geeksforgeeks.org, and in the courses you can search for SQL, and there is SQL Foundation self-placed course over there, and you can buy this course and you can get one-on-one attention through our mentors, or you can ask your doubts over here, or you can post all your doubts in the comment section as well. Okay, I'm gonna reply to all of those comments using my personal ID, or I'll ask them to reply to those comments. Okay, so yeah, that was it for this video, guys. See you in the next one. Bye bye.